The role of Anzac troops in the Second World War is well documented, but not the story of one of our bravest fighters.
The men volunteered to defuse booby-trapped Nazi mines, sometimes deep underwater where they had to work by touch alone. Robert Macklin has chronicled their take in a new book called One False Move, and he joins us now from Canberra. Good morning. Thanks for your time. Now, this is such an extraordinary story. Why isn't it more well known?
Well, I think, Karina, the real problem there was that the work that they did was top secret. So even after the war, the details were not released. And in fact, this story is really told for the first time about these four men. And the Navy Classified Research Unit here in Canberra, Sea Power, opened their files to me for the first time. And I was very, very lucky because not only did they do that, but the four families of these extraordinary men were able to give me memoirs that they had written at the time or just after the war. And this has allowed me to bring the whole thing to life and to have us more or less sitting and standing and even swimming beside these men while I undertook this absolutely extraordinarily dangerous work. And they became, in fact, the four most highly decorated naval officers in our history.
We'll come to that in a moment, but just tell us about these four men and how they came to work together.
Well, there was Stuart Mould, who was an architect from Sydney, Hugh Syme in Melbourne from the Age newspaper family, George Goss in Adelaide, and Leon Goldsworthy in Perth. And they all volunteered to join the Australian Navy, and then they went to Britain under the Yachtsman scheme, it was called. And when they got there, they found a Britain that was teetering on the edge of defeat, because these magnetic mines that the Germans had surrounded the approaches to the ports with were destroying ship after ship after ship. And they were also dropping these parachute mines on the great cities of Britain. And there were only a very, very few number of volunteers there. In fact, there were only 15 men working on these mines in the very early parts of the war. And these four Australians, over the period of the war, they attacked or they defended against these mines, which kept on changing their mechanisms. The German Nazis changed the mechanism from magnetic to acoustic to pressure, and then even to photoelectric, so that when the innards of the mine were exposed by the men defusing it, it would explode if there was light touched the photoelectric cells. So month after month, they had to go back either on land or beneath the sea to effect the defusing of the mines.
It's just extraordinary when you talk about that in the book, that they would use a particular tactic to defuse a bomb, and the Germans would then realise that these bombs had been defused, and they would use whatever tactic that the Australians had used to defuse the bomb. That would then be what would trigger the bomb next time. It was just extraordinary. How brave were these men? Well,
just unbelievable, because the Germans actually knew what they were doing. And at one stage, they dropped these parachute mines around the area at Portsmouth where their headquarters were, particularly cleverly booby-trapped to actually either blow the arms off the people who were defusing it, or actually explode the mine while they were doing it. And this was when it really became personal. And there was one particular evil genius on the German side, a man named Herbert Ruhlmann. And I'm sad to say that he's celebrated today in the State Museum at Dusseldorf. But this fellow was the one who was able to change the various methods of explosion, and he was their enemy. He was their particular enemy, and they fought him and defeated him all through the war. He worked basically to Hitler himself, and this became almost a crusade for our four men to battle against these characters, because actually it was a war for civilization, and I don't think we really understand even today just how close Britain came to defeat.
Robert Macklin, you note that no Australian naval personnel has received the Victoria Cross. Do you believe these four men should receive posthumous medals?
Well, as I say, they're very highly decorated. They all won the George Cross, and the difference between the George Cross and the Victoria Cross is that the Victoria Cross is supposed to be awarded for gallantry in the presence of the enemy. Well, in my view, these four guys were very much in the presence of the enemy when they were dealing with these most vicious and terrible weapons that the enemy had landed on Britain's shores. So, if there were to be any change in their decorations, they would most certainly deserve a VC.
Robert Macklin, we thank you very much for your time this morning.
Thank you.